All right, everybody, welcome to the broadcast today. So my name is Trevor, and we are hosting and talking about the spring 2016 eBay seller update. Not a bad update at all for sellers, I don't think. eBay has been prone to increase fees and do some pretty drastic changes in the spring, but this year's I don't think was that big of a deal. So we're going to talk through a little bit more high level on some of these changes. Okay. So first of all, if you don't know where to find this update information, let me just send it to you right now, if you don't mind. I just sent all of you guys the link to it. You guys should have all gotten it. The link is this right up here at the top. I know that's going to be awfully hard to read, so I'm going to put it here in my word counter program, and you guys will see it a little bit better this way. Here you go. There's the link right there. Can you guys all see that all right? I'm just going to keep this up for a second in case you're watching this recorded. I'll also put it in the comments box on YouTube, so you can click it there. This will take you to the seller update. Now eBay traditionally will have a spring update and then also a fall update. The spring tends to be the more drastic of the two. So we spend time on both updates, but we'll spend a little extra time on the spring ones because they tend to be a little bit bigger and have more involved. As I was saying earlier, luckily there's actually not a whole lot of huge changes for us that we need to be aware of. Last week we talked about this one right here, this features and fees update. So I'll briefly comment on that one because we've already gone through that in detail. But when you get to this web page here, this is kind of their official 2016 update page. Let's just go through each one of the areas. I'll answer some questions about them. We'll make sure everybody's clear on what these are all about. Okay. Here's the first one up at the top left. It's called View Item. And eBay says they're wanting to improve conversion and the buyer experience through having a better item description, okay, specifically through mobile devices. So let me click on this and kind of share what that's like with you. So let's zoom in. Let me read a little bit of this. This is the View Item Description Summaries for Better Mobile Viewing. That's the update. So they say the new View Item Description for mobile features a clean and consistent item description summary. eBay derives a brief 250-character text-only description summary from your full item description. This provides relevant listing information that allows shoppers to make fast, informed buying decisions. So here's the thing, guys. Since eBay is very much mobile and the world of e-commerce is more mobile, over the last few years, eBay has been trying to adjust the look and style of their site. So if you do shop on eBay from a mobile phone, that everything displays really nicely and really intuitively. Over the years, though, that's been a problem because a lot of sellers, as they've done listings on eBay, they'll bring in certain types of JavaScript coding that doesn't actually work very well on a mobile device, or some certain types of HTML or CSS into the code, or even some plugins that they'll get off of eBay that'll plug in some weird kind of unique features with rotating images and all sorts of different things down in the description. Now, most of you guys who are creating normal listings and doing a lot of copy and paste from your supplier don't do a lot of that specialty coding and programming. But people who have in the past haven't had their listings look very good on a mobile phone. Therefore, eBay is coming out with this new thing, and they're basically saying, hey, let's cut out a lot of that garbage and let's make our descriptions really straightforward. So they go in here and they say, for the summary, we determine which content in your full item description is most relevant by identifying keywords that shoppers use to search for your items. So basically what they do is they take your full item description and they're going to scan through that using their technology and pick out kind of a little short summary that they can use on mobile phones for shoppers. And that's supposed to just fit a little bit better from a, from a mobile standpoint and look a little cleaner, look a little nicer. So that's really it. I mean, I won't go into any more of the details of that. I don't think this impacts most of you guys. If you want to learn more about this, you can click through these other screens, how you benefit, what you need to do, and then frequently asked questions. But as I said, most of you guys are copying and pasting descriptions from from your supplier, right? Or you're writing your own descriptions. As long as you're not using plugins or advanced JavaScript and all that other garbage in your description, eBay won't have a problem with that at all. Okay? So that's the new mobile description update. Stop me if you have questions. I imagine we'll probably just kind of fly through this stuff pretty quickly. It's pretty self-explanatory, but if you have questions, go ahead and type them in, and we'll certainly cover them. Okay. Features and fees. This is the one that we talked about last week, and this is where eBay has essentially increased the price of the eBay store on all levels. From your basic, premium to anchor store have all gotten a little more expensive. Most of you guys who are starting will end up with a basic store. You'll be paying about 25 bucks a month instead of 20 bucks a month. But you get an increased number of free listings, and it's supposed to, in the end, all work out better for you financially, which it can, as long as you're taking advantage of all of that. So they talk more about the nuances of that. I don't think I'll spend time on this right now, if you don't mind, unless you guys had some questions from last week. We'll just leave this be for now, because we talked about that a lot before. Let's go to product reviews. Guys, you know, one of the reasons, I don't know if this is true for you, but one of the reasons why I like to shop on Amazon is for the product reviews. Do any of you guys feel that way at all? I mean, there's different reasons to shop at Amazon, no doubt. I love the Amazon Prime. I love the fact that I can buy sort of everything I want at one place. Amazon's very trustworthy. They have reasonable prices, but I love the fact that I can look at a product and their reviews are so robust. In fact, a lot of times, even if I'm going to buy a product at another retail location, I go to Amazon and I'll read reviews about the product there, so I'm sure I want to get it, and then I'll go buy it. I mean, I did that with my compost bin I bought the other day off of Amazon. We bought one of those little kitchen compost bins and then a bigger compost bin for the yard, because we want to get into doing some of our own compost this year for our garden. And I got on there and found some awesome ones. I had no idea about compost bins, but seeing the reviews, it made a big difference for me in my buying decision. eBay's got a little bit of envy for that feature on Amazon, and rightfully so, because it's been done so well. So they are improving their own product reviews. So anyway, here's kind of what they say about that. They say we have updated product reviews to make it simpler to read and contribute reviews. So have you guys noticed that eBay has product reviews? This isn't a new thing. They've actually had them for a while, but it's very rarely used in the community. I mean, nobody really does reviews, and you'll notice many products don't even have review options there. So they basically said we're going to expand reviews out to more products. It's going to be simpler than ever, right? We streamline the process, and then they've got a new system where they're going to follow up and actually on the eBay side try to promote buyers to review items more. You'll notice Amazon does it all the time. I always get emails from Amazon asking me to review a product after I bought it. It's the very same thing here. So eBay wants a piece of that, and I'm happy that that's the case, because most of my shopping experience on eBay, if I want to buy something on eBay, I'll check the reviews on Amazon and then buy it. eBay is trying to get away from that, which overall is actually a really good thing, I think. Here's kind of a picture of what their reviews are supposed to look like. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. There you go. Up there at the top. I know that's small, but they have a little rating section right there on this Hamilton Beach product. Okay. In theory, I think it's going to be a great change on eBay. I really do. In practice, we'll see. They haven't managed to execute reviews very well in the past, and I'm somewhat skeptical they're going to be able to do it in the future. I hope so, because I think it'd be good for the community. Okay? All right, let me zoom out a little bit here. So questions about that, or is that pretty straightforward? I think it is, but go ahead and ask if you've got some questions. Category and item specifics. This is another little change. Now, you guys know as well as I do, when you list something on eBay, you can select what category to put it in, right? That's a requirement when you first start on eBay, or when you first list an item on eBay. And then item specifics, you'll remember, is that little section after you put in your title. There's a little section just above the actual description where you can put in certain specifics about the item. What's it made of? Some of the lengths, some of the other specifications, the UPC, the country of origin, right? Those are item specifics. Here's what eBay says about that. And I'm reading just right here. They say new category changes and item-specific updates will create an even more intuitive buying, selling, and search experience on eBay. In May, so this hasn't happened yet, but they say in May, category name changes and item specifics on our US site will be more closely aligned with other eBay sites to offer eBay sellers improved access to cross-border trade opportunities. In addition to category name changes, other updates include additions, removals, moves, and renames. So, in other words, if you've ever listed a product on eBay, they give you this giant list of categories to choose from, right? You got to put it in one of these categories. They're adjusting a lot of the category names, is what they're doing. So, anyway, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, I don't think. So they're changing some names, and then they're adjusting how some of the item specifics are going to show up. So you can read through this. I don't find this overly interesting or useful. You're welcome to look through that if you'd like to. Okay. This one is actually quite interesting. This is what's called the Seller Hub. Have some of you guys heard of Seller Hub before? And while you're answering that question, a couple of comments here. Russell, you said I was distracted by something else at the beginning. Just want to make sure I understood the webinar registration process. The training is going to be set for every Friday. The time is going to remain the same. We're going to adjust the times on the webinar, but the time is going to remain the same as it has: 11 Pacific, 12 Mountain, 1 Central, 2 Eastern. So hopefully that clarifies. We've got to make that change though, because I know that's sort of confusing as it is. Okay, but Seller Hub, yeah, Seller Hub was something they came out with. They announced, I think it was in the fall of last year. In fact, yeah, it says right here they did. They released this in the fall of 2015. So this was supposed to be some new sort of intuitive, better experience for sellers. They'd have like a better seller dashboard and stuff. Anyway, let me just read this paragraph and we'll talk about it. It says in the fall of 2015 seller release, we announced the new eBay Seller Hub beta, which means they were sort of running, sort of a test version of it. More than 25,000 sellers are now using the new hub to manage their entire eBay business. Based on their input, we've made a number of enhancements that will help you manage your orders and inventory more efficiently. This summer, Seller Hub will be available to all sellers and will become the default tool for managing your listings on eBay. If you want early access to Seller Hub, join the wait list today. So in other words, this Seller Hub, you know how when you guys are on your eBay account and you go to your My eBay and it shows like, the items you've got listed for sale, and maybe you've got your eBay store view there, and you've got like your management system right there on your eBay account. That's supposed to all switch over to this Seller Hub at some point in the summer. And So, people have been testing it, and I guess they've been getting a lot of feedback. I haven't used it yet, so I have no idea. It's just supposed to be better in terms of helping you manage and take care of your listings. I think the eBay system that you have right now that's inside the My eBay is sort of clunky and old. It's been the same thing it's been for years and years and years, with very little change. So they've revamped that whole entire back end process, and so it's supposed to be awesome, a lot better. But I don't know. You're welcome to join the wait list, and maybe by clicking this button right here, maybe get on that list where you can start using Seller Hub early. But it sounds like it'll all be rolled out over the course of the summer. So we'll all get a chance to use it, and so we'll talk more about it then. Nothing really to worry about too much right now. I have heard, though, if you don't like Seller Hub and you get using it, that you can revert back to your old existing eBay dashboard. That was something I read about it recently. So the jury's out on it. We'll all kind of get a chance to use it here as things progress over the summer. So that could be really cool or not cool at all. So that's my analysis on that. I have no idea. We'll see. Jewelry policy is interesting. This is their new jewelry policy definitions. Will be of interest to you guys who sell some jewelry, which is of particular interest to me because I've done a fair bit of jewelry on eBay. Here's what's new with their policy. Let me zoom in so you guys can kind of follow along as I read some of this. It says eBay has updated the eBay jewelry policy. And by the way, if you want that policy, you can click on this blue link so you can read it in full. To provide clearer definitions of what can be listed in the fine and fashion jewelry categories, which more closely align with the industry standards. So here's been the problem in the past. When you list a piece of jewelry on eBay, people are mistakenly putting like low-end fashion jewelry that has really no material value in the fine jewelry category. And then some people are putting really nice jewelry that has real silver, real gold, real diamonds, and they're putting that mistakenly in the fashion jewelry category. Fashion jewelry isn't supposed to be fine jewelry, and fine jewelry isn't supposed to be fashion jewelry. They're trying to really make a distinction there, right? So what they're doing is they're just making it to where it's outlining specifically where you put the type of jewelry you sell. I don't sell a lot of fine jewelry at all. Well, a little bit. Most of my jewelry is more fashion jewelry because it's on the cheaper end. But listen as I continue to read. It says, we've expanded our list of fine and fashion metals, gemstones, and material that can be listed in these categories. We've also updated our listing requirements to help you describe your items more clearly and accurately to ensure they're listed in the appropriate category. I think what eBay is trying to do is they're trying to get away from sellers making a mistake of not being detailed enough to where somebody thinks they're buying something that's much nicer than it actually is. Because that, if you're not detailed enough in the piece of jewelry you're listing, it's likely there's some misunderstanding in that transaction. So there's now a new requirement that the metal type or gemstone need to be fine as defined in the policy to list it in the fine jewelry category. If any part of your item is fine, then it must be listed in the fine category. Fine metals that are plated or filled with another fine metal must be listed in the fine jewelry category. So I don't know if you guys have any experience doing this, but I bought a lot of jewelry products out of China where the metal might be like an alloy of some sort, but it's plated or coated with, a quote unquote fine material. So for example, I might sell a sterling silver plated necklace or a 24 karat gold plated necklace. Now that doesn't mean the whole necklace is actually 24 karat gold. It just means it's plated. But by this definition, I have to take those items and I have to list them in the fine jewelry category because there is a portion of the piece that's considered quote unquote fine. Does that make sense? Says new item specifics for those materials in each category. Sellers will be required to use these new item specifics when listing. You know, when a lot of times when you're filling out item specifics, you're not, you know, it's mostly optional. You just fill in what you can. When you're doing jewelry now, they're requiring you to put in more detail so as to force you to be more clear about your listing. I think people before that were sort of skipping over it. Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to go through the rest of this. You guys kind of get the gist of it. So just trying to clean up their jewelry on eBay. Make sure there's fewer misunderstandings. I think that's the whole crux of the jewelry policy change. Does that make sense to you guys? Questions about that? Last but not least, I've actually gotten a couple of questions about the user agreement. You'll notice that the user agreement has actually changed slightly. So this is what they say. This is the overall company eBay user agreement. They say at eBay, we strive to make our policies clear and our services easy to use. As part of that commitment, we're announcing some changes to the eBay user agreement. Our updated user agreement will take effect on April 5th for new users. So if you've registered since April 5th, you've already agreed to this new user agreement. But if you're an older seller like I am, and like a lot of you guys are, this will take effect on May 19th. The updated user agreement was posted on ebay.com on April 5th. Okay, so key updates to the eBay user agreement. They've just updated a couple of little clauses. If you've ever sat down and actually read the whole eBay user agreement, I want to pat you on the back, because I can honestly say I've never sat down and read through the entire thing, because it's a ton of legalese, legal mumbo jumbo that I guess needs to be there. But you know, it's like any other user agreement you ever read. A lot of, 99% of it doesn't even carry a lot of value to the typical seller, but there is a portion of it that is. So they said that the first bullet point, using eBay, while eBay is committed to measuring our sellers' performance fairly, we also expect sellers to consistently provide service that results in a high level of buyer satisfaction. We've updated this section to indicate that sellers who fail to meet our minimum performance standards may have their accounts limited, restricted, suspended, or downgraded. I'm very surprised that eBay didn't have that in before. Basically, what eBay is telling us at this point is their prior user agreement didn't authorize them, or wasn't very clear on what the restrictions would be for someone who fails to meet their standard selling requirements. So, for example, we've talked about this a little bit. We've talked about the defect rate, right? We've talked about how you want to keep it low. And eBay's made changes over that over the years. Well, it wasn't part of their user agreement, I guess, and so I would imagine this is probably what happened. I imagine there were some prominent sellers on eBay that fell below standard on the defect rate, and eBay suspended them or prohibited growth on their eBay account, or maybe even kicked them off of eBay. And I'll bet that made them mad, and they brought up some sort of lawsuit with eBay. That's my guess. So I'll bet that happened, and since eBay didn't have that in the user agreement, they now have to update it, basically saying, hey, if you don't meet our standards, we have the right to kick you off. So what does that mean for you guys? Nothing, other than just make sure you do a good job to match their minimum performance standards, which we've talked about, and you'll never have a problem with that at all. For legal disputes, this third one right here, we've made some minor changes to our dispute resolution policy. Nothing of significance there. Returns and cancellations, we've updated this section to state that for new sellers in all listings where returns are accepted, eBay will be the default role, or eBay will set the default role that automates the return process. That's not super significant to you guys either. Really, I don't think the new user agreement thing is really sort of significant to the typical seller like us. So that's my 2 cents. If you want to go read it and understand the changes on a deeper level, you're welcome to. I'm not I'm not stopping you. Go for it. I just don't think it's overly important. Question from Russell then. So, do we need to go into existing listings for jewelry and make changes? I don't think so. I think existing ones right now are fine, Russell, but I think what happens is when you relist those, you may be required then to go in and change that. I haven't had to make any changes yet. But that may be here in some of the other data. We'd have to comb through that. My guess is don't change them until you're told you have to. Gail says, I got a phone call from eBay and was told if I didn't change my return policy to 30 days, I would lose my top seller status. Yeah, it's interesting. They to be a top rated seller, they're now promoting that you need to make sure your return policy is 30 days. So my advice, Gail, is do it. 14 days, the difference between 14 days and 30 days isn't that big of a deal. I know it's twice the amount of time, but I don't know. If you're doing things right, I don't think you're dealing with tons and tons of returns anyway. So I would, to keep that status, that top rated seller status, I would make that change for sure. Really good question. Okay, well, guys, that's pretty much the crux here of this update for the spring. Nothing earth-shattering, really. I remember years ago, this was probably before a lot of you guys even started with us here in the training program. It was back in like 2012, maybe 2013. They came out with an update in the spring that said all of your pictures had to be at least 500 pixels on one of their sides. And you guys are probably thinking, well, yeah, that's always been the rule, right? Well, it wasn't always the rule. There was a time where you could post any picture of any size or no picture, and eBay would still let you put up the listing. And because mobile shopping has gotten bigger and bigger, that was part of their push to make mobile shopping experience better because they wanted better quality pictures for mobile devices and in general. So they forced everybody to get bigger pictures. That rule didn't always exist, but it was back in, I want to say it was 2013 that was implemented. A couple of years ago, it was this new UPC rule where they were talking about forcing you to add in a UPC, and that hasn't really materialized as much. So, they come out with these changes. The fee structure changed 4 or 5 years ago. Just like the eBay store fees changed a little bit with this update. So there's always updates that are coming, and bigger sellers are always sort of really just nervous, I guess, is for lack of a better way of saying it. They're just nervous come spring because they're worried some big change is going to happen. But we always adapt, and we always do just fine. So I don't think I'll talk any more about the seller update. I think this is probably plenty. If you've got any more questions, feel free to email me or reach out to your coach, and let us know if we can do anything, but I think it should be pretty straightforward. The one thing that might be interesting to us all here over the summer is this seller hub that we were talking about. I'm really curious to see how that pans out. So we'll check that out and we'll comment on it when the time comes, okay? Just to clarify before I leave, we'll change the webinar time back to what it's supposed to be in the GoToWebinar email that you guys get. Or on the registration email. The webinar time is going to stay 11 Pacific, 12 Mountain Time, 1 Central, 2 Eastern. So we'll keep it there on Fridays, okay? Okay. Well, thanks for coming along, everybody. We'll see you next week. Appreciate it.